And we are live. You can't say that before we start. Okay, hi guys. Welcome to Elsewhere Podcast, where we have
I don't say anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
normal conversations with not so normal people. Sorry.
Very not so normal.
And today we've got Ivy Asher, who's an amazing author. She writes my favorite kind of books,
Good.
which is how I know her because I've read all of her books. And I think I
Oh,
skipped like two, and I had to go back and read those, so that was fun. But yeah,
oh,
it's good to have you. I appreciate you taking the time to come hang out with us. I know this community
oh yeah.
absolutely loves to meet new people and all different types of creatives, content creators, reactors, musicians, producers, authors, you name it, we love it. So thank you for taking the
I
time.
am super honored. I was like, "Are you sure you want to talk to me?" Because I am not anything special, but I'm super excited and a little bit nervous. But this is gonna be awesome.
Are
My
you
first podcast.
popping your podcast cherry? Let's go. I'll be gentle.
I mean, I like it rough, so let's go.
Thanks, Jess. You just posted your website. I can't.
Oh, did you? Thank you.
I'm sorry. It went there, y'all, that quick. Like,
Appreciate you. I mean, I write dirty books. Like, it was gonna get a little scandalous. Let's be honest.
well, that's the thing. Okay, so this is something you might not know. I don't know if I've mentioned this already. My community, my personal community, like the Elsewhere community that have been rocking with
Mhm.
me for a while, all tease me about how much I love my dirty books. Like
Yeah.
between October 2020 and March 2021, I read like 600 and something books.
Fangirl.
They're
Yes.
all dirty, all, you
Love
know,
it.
dirty in every kind of way. My favorite are dark,
Uh,
enemies to lovers,
yep.
bully,
Yep.
mafia, like all that stuff. And then I got into stuff like I branch off into like more paranormal, like more supernatural, like
Yep.
shifters and fantasy witches, all that stuff. So anything under the sun, I'm pretty much down for, unless it's a female that is obnoxious. Like I'm talking a female lead, right?
Yeah.
Who just knows everything and doesn't listen to the guy who's panting after her and is just
Mhm.
mad all the time. I hate that.
This is honestly so funny because it's kind of how I started writing. Because, like, to be completely honest, I'm kind of like, I really have no business doing what I'm doing. And I'm incredibly lucky that it's working for me. But I started writing because I had had a baby, I was home, I was like super lonely and bored and like responsible for this human. And I was reading a lot to like fill the empty time that you have as like a new mom. And I fell into like this rabbit hole of like romances, and I kept reading about one, like young girls, and two, they would make like the dumbest decisions. And there's like a term for it now in the reader community, like too stupid to live decisions. And I kept thinking, like, I mean, they were good books, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking any of the books and I'm not knocking that kind of like trope, but I just kept reading these books and I was like, no, no rational woman would make that decision. Like, what's going on here? And I just felt like I was reading books, but they weren't the kind of women that I knew. Because the kind of women that I knew could kick your ass, but then they could also cry about it because they could feel bad. But they would step up like when you needed to step up. And they were just like these badass human beings. And I'm like, where are these chicks?
Yep.
And so, like, it started for me with a character and just an idea for a character who was like the women that I knew in my life, who could be badass, but also vulnerable and tell a good joke and like lead, but also follow when it was necessary. And that's kind of how I started. And those are the kind of characters that I love to write. And so, yeah, it just started for me being like, wait, why are these girls in these books always making these really dumb decisions? I'm like, what about the girls who don't make the dumb decision and kick ass anyway? And that's what I wanted to read. I was like, I could write that, maybe. And then I just did, and it's kind of worked out ever since.
Well, no, that's perfect. I mean, you have to have some kind of a most most solutions come from a problem that needs solved, right? So
Right.
you find that there's something that you're like, what the hell is wrong with these people? And see, like I said, when I have a specific book in mind. It was this huge series, and it was all about this whole community where it was like I don't know, when you get into the world of like a series of books,
Yeah.
you get into the world and all, and there, by the way,
Yeah.
there's Wolf 7 Music. He's the one who does all my graphics. He's in the chat.
Oh, hey, dude, your graphics are so killer. Sorry. I've been drooling.
By
I'm
the
like,
way,
how did you find this guy? This is amazing.
welcome in everybody. I am sorry I haven't shouted everybody out because we started right off the gate. So I appreciate you all. I see you guys. I appreciate you being here. But there's a specific, like, you get into the world and somehow all the rules in that world make sense, which is
Right.
odd sometimes because, for example, and anybody who's read any of the vast number of books that I have might have run into this series. I can't remember. I look it up every once in a while and I keep forgetting the name. It starts with a B. It's a group of like, it's almost like they're a mafia, but they have like this enclosed area where you have to like go through the buildings and it's all like encircled, like a park inside of apartments surrounding all of it, you know?
Yeah.
And then they all like literally they're all doms and they all like spank their women and stuff, like that's a thing. And
Nice.
it's a whole, it's a completely accepted, that's just how it is, that's, that's how you know he loves, it's a whole thing. So
Right.
there was one where it was about to be a MFM, and it was going to
Hmm.
be, these two guys who were great, and I love their characters. The only reason I finished the book, the journalist, main character female, and I don't write bad reviews, y'all. I don't do that because that's kind of
Right.
shitty.
Yeah.
I write
Mhm.
nice reviews. I don't write mean ones. I wrote a mean review. It wasn't towards the author. It was towards that character because I hated her guts. She she was a
That's a
journalist.
good thing because anytime, like good or bad, if you can get like a severe reaction either for or even against a character, like that's solid writing. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, okay, it was so bad I about put it down and like couldn't stand it. Like I almost did. I
Right.
didn't want to finish, but I liked the guys, and I hope that they kind of dumped her ass and found somebody else. However, she was a journalist that was, I'm gonna find the story no matter what, and screwed over their entire community, screwed over the
Mhm.
guys.
Mhm.
But here's the thing: she met them, liked them, screwed them, right, and then
Uh-huh.
goes the next day and drops the story on them after declaring her love for them
Oh
because
shit.
because journalism's number one. I'm like, wow, bitch. Like you need to
The
be.
author felt passionate about a good story.
I was like, fuck this girl. I was so mad because it was, they were trying to be so kind and sweet, and she's just like, I just know that, everyone's out to get you all the time. And that's how it is. And I don't trust anyone. And they're like, look, I just laid on the train tracks for you. And she's like, but you must have an ulterior motive, you jerk. And I'm like,
The
shut
girl's got
up.
trust issues.
I'm like,
Clearly.
shut up. But
She needs some help.
when it carries so far that it takes over the whole story for me, this is my
Mhm.
personal
Yeah.
opinion, it pisses me off because it's like, okay, I get where you came from, I get your backstory, I get how you're
Mhm.
approaching it, but the moment that it's like, okay, bitch, if you don't want him, I do. Like, stop.
You're like, I happen to be in the market for a few good book boyfriends, so obviously it's not working for you, and I am available. I get that. I think that is one of the cool things though about like indie books these days. And they kind of get a bad rap, like indie versus trad pub and like that whole fight. But I think it's one of the really cool things about indie books is there are so many new authors who are publishing so many different kinds of stories. You can find your vibe now, I feel like more than you ever could before. Because before it was really controlled and there were only certain kinds of books that you could, get. And although they were awesome, sometimes like they would be really like repetitive or similar, and now it's like you can find anything and everything. There is someone writing it, and if it's your vibe you can find a book about it. And I just think that's the coolest thing, like even if it's not your vibe, you have to put it
Absolutely.
down because the girl obviously doesn't want a harem or whatever the case may be. um I just think it's the coolest thing because there's just so much out there and so many different opportunities to find like what blows your skirt up. Like it's just killer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, that's the thing is that I read so many and I go down these rabbit holes of certain types. What I hate
Right.
is when I get halfway through a series, something else like squirrel catches my eye, I see something shiny,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and Kindle only lets you like rent a certain amount of books, and I'm getting, so I have to write a list of ones I have to go back and re-rent. Plus, I get the audiobooks, so I have like all these audiobooks, but it doesn't match up to anything. I'm like, really?
Right.
But
Same. I'm like an audiobook fiend. So I have like crazy Audible and then like KU, and then books I buy on top of that.
Yeah.
And especially with like TikTok and book talk and these types of things where you see like all these killer like book promo, and I swear my TBR is literally out of control.
By the way,
I think
Jess, an FMC is a female main character.
yes. Oh, sorry.
No, 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 no. She just did. I mean, it's just one of those things. I had to Google. And by the way, it's fun to Google some of the terms because I was trying to find words to look up specific types. And by the way, I like triggers and I like dark and I like not full on taboo, like, whoa.
Yeah.
No, not like not real daddy stuff, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
like
Totally.
but you have to find the right words. I like reverse harems and stuff, so you have to just find the right terminology. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. It's that simple. But then
Yes.
once you
And
do, you start talking in the book speak.
yep. And people are like, "Oh, my people, let me give you everything. Let me give you every rack I possibly have. It's awesome."
Well, I do know, and I've heard before, basically that like Amazon's actually harder to deal with because Amazon's fickle. But
Very.
Amazon's got some seriously dirty shit on there. But
No, and if you know what to look for on Amazon, like if you can get into like their sneaky little erotica corners, yeah, they have tons. But sometimes when you're just searching keywords, it can be really difficult to find like an actual like solid list of what's available. You have to like sneaky like find it, type stuff in and try and find weird keywords. It can be difficult for sure. They don't make it easy, especially on people who like more definitely like more erotica or super dark or even just like in the PNR sectors or fantasy sectors that I write in, it can be difficult to find a lot of books. I was looking for like a vampire romance the other day because I'm a hardcore mood reader and I don't get to read very often, which is kind of sad now that I'm writing. It just takes up, the whole business aspect of it takes up so much time. I don't get a lot of like free time to sit down with a good book. But the other day I was like, fuck it. I want vampire romance. I want dirty. I want like kick-ass chick. And it took forever to find like a good book. Amazon just like wouldn't give me options. I was like, no, I don't want the same like IT Lucas story. I tried it. It's not for me. They like put up this same kind of like 15 authors over and over again. And I'm like, good for them. I'm here for it, but I want something a little different. It took a minute to find something, but I did.
hey, shout out to Wolf Seven Music. He tipped $5. Says I recently read that there are only two printing houses left in the U.S., which has caused authors' deadlines to be more crucial than ever before. Does this affect your work, or do you think it can affect quality of writing in general? We're getting like
Yeah,
educate, like really like intellectual right now.
and I have to be like fully honest. I don't know a fuck ton about like the trad pub world because I'm indie. And I'm really lucky in the sense that I control my deadlines and I control like when I put books out. And, like my printing is either print on demand through Amazon or through Ingram Spark. And so I don't really have to fuck too much with any of like the trad pub printers or publishers or any of that stuff. But I know that they've been like consolidating and there's been like some issues with like who's going to acquire who and what that's going to do to the system. I know that Amazon and the fact that they make it so easy for indies to publish has definitely like shook up the trad pub world quite a bit, but I'm not sure what like the long-term ramifications of that's really going to be. Um, I have a good friend whose series like took off and it's been amazing. And she had interest from publishers, but like what they were offering her, she was going to make more like publishing it herself than she would have through them, even though their marketing machine is bigger and you can get more eyes on a series. But in the long run, she just made more on her own than she would have signing with them. And a lot of authors who are like doing good as indies, that's just how it works. Like there's no point even considering taking a trad pub deal because you just make more on your own and you have more control over everything, which is super nice because I'm a control freak like that.
Well, a lot of this community understands that because we know a lot of independent artists, and so you get the whole like the unsigned. They're not going to sign with the label type vibe with that
Right.
as well.
Right.
Everything goes to them, but then the grind is all on them as well. Before
Yeah.
before I go any further, I just wanted to say one thing. And Wolf, your donation is going to go there too, unless you object. But I don't know if anybody has seen my story yesterday. anything that's coming towards this channel, if somebody's kind enough to donate, whether no matter what the cost is, I'm actually going to be sending that over. And I asked that people can. I forgot to put the link in. That's my bad. Blaine, if anybody knows Blaine, I can never say his last name, but his real name's Walter. He's been in YouTube, and he's been on the Discord. He's been on my Discord forever. I've known him for almost 2 years now. He is at home on hospice, terminal cancer. He's stage 4. He's in his 30s. And, he's been a real cool friend, a really great person. So, oh, there it is. Just posted it in the chat. So if anybody does want to throw things this direction, please feel free to send it there instead, to help his family, to help care for him in his last, time until, while he's still around. So make him a little bit more comfortable. So that's kind of where I'm pushing any donations that come my way for the next indefinite time. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. I don't want you to send something and then not know where it's going. I don't think that's fair. But anyway, I forgot to put it in the description, but there's the link right there. Sorry, I was going to say something that I was wondering about. I've heard in the past with conversations I've had, right, that, for example, and I think it was Amazon, like, so let's say there's a niche genre, right? So there's a very specific, section of erotica that somebody's looking into. So let's just say, and I guess one of the big ones, and this is something I figure about, is shifting, like shifters, things like that, because there's a fine line between what's considered a shifter and what's considered like a beast, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be super careful.
Shifter romance was huge. Now monster, like demons were big for a while. Now monster romance specifically is all over the place. So yeah.
But I mean, I've heard that you could have a story that has, like, you have to be careful, like where the actual, like, the sex scenes happen, like what form they're in, like,
oh right, yeah,
because it could be considered, they'll consider it like crossing that line.
yeah. So Amazon, like so Amazon's the biggest option for indie right now. You can go wide where you release on other platforms, but Amazon's just the huge one. And KU specifically, the Kindle Unlimited subscription that a lot of readers have that allow you to like check out so many books, and you only pay, I don't know what it is a month now, like $14.
I don't even care. I've had that for years now, and I religiously use it. So.
Like that has just opened up like a whole world of people just having access to all kinds of different books and stories. But Amazon specifically, like you do sign contracts with them, and I have to be careful how much I talk about them because the eye is always watching and you just never know if you can get in trouble for stuff. But they have very specific rules about content, and so if you're doing anything that they consider sketchy,
right,
they'll pull your book. They'll pull your royalties for that book. They can pull your whole account so that you don't have to, so you can't publish with them anymore. So yeah, you have to follow certain guidelines with them and not go too far into any one kind of taboo direction.
Right.
And for the authors who want to go taboo, they have different publishing platforms and they do different things. It's just not through Amazon. So yeah, you do have to be careful kind of where you go with things, and especially with like paranormal books and fantasy. And
I had to ask because in all honesty, I've gone through, like I said, I go down these rabbit holes, and then there's the suggested books, and then like for example, I go through your books, at the end of your book there's like a list and all these links of all your other books. I'm like, oh, bet, let's go. And go down the list. I love when they're in order, and then the next book they're in order again, so then I know I clicked on 1, 2, and 3, I can go to 4. Even if they're standalones, it just makes my life easy. But
I like that because I always feel like nobody pays attention to, we call it back matter.
Oh
So I'm
God,
always
yeah.
like, should I keep putting back matter in my books because nobody pays attention? And you have to like update it as you're publishing and putting more books in a series out and stuff. So it's good to know that, that people look at that. So I'll keep doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and especially like in a series, I'm not gonna lie to you, and I know you won't get offended by this. I have an absolute hands down favorite reverse harem series in my and it was one of the first ones that I really got into.
What is it?
Havoc.
Oh, is that Sam Stevens?
Yeah,
She's a killer writer.
I know.
She's so good.
But I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's my hands down. But when I get into a series that I like, and there's multiple books in the same exact series, right?
Yeah.
Then when it go pops up at the top, when you hit that certain point where it's the end of the book, and I
Uh-huh.
assume that's the moment where you get paid for full reading, the whole book being read. I figure that's the moment where it suggests the next book in the series. I'm clicking that like that in half a second
Yes.
because I'm like, I want more. Oh, you
No,
gotta
that's the
read it,
best thing.
Sarah.
And Amazon does it too for us. Like at the end of a book, if there's the next in the series, or even they'll just link like the author's page, which is super helpful and super supportive that their algorithm, their system sets that up so you can be like, oh, next one, or oh, they have these other books, or also buy, or if you like this, you also might like that. So that's super awesome.
Well, Jess asked, you have a favorite author yourself?
Do I have a favorite author? Oh fuck, I don't. I have a lot. I will say when I first started reading when I was a little nugget, the first book that like sucked me in and would not let me go was this book by Dean Koontz, and it was called Intensity. And they made like a made for TV movie about it, which is how I actually heard about the book. I was like up late, I think I was in middle school or something. And this made for TV movie was on, and I got into it, but then I had to like go to bed, and I looked it up and it was this book. So I went and got the book and I read it, and it just like blew me away. And that was like my first foray into books that were not school books. And
Right.
I've just, yeah, like hooked
Well, see,
ever.
I was the little girl at the library at age 6, 7, and 8, getting 16, 17, 18 books, usually not autobiographies, but biographies about historical figures, like a fictional kind of storytelling of like Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett and stuff, like all of these really important characters. And I'd have the librarians like, yeah, are you gonna, and my mom would be like, yeah, she'll read all these probably in the next like 3 days.
Don't worry about her. She's got this file.
Oh, and there's Sarah says, I barely know where the line goes between shifter and monster romance. If both are wolf or lichen, what's the difference?
I mean, let's be honest, there's not really a difference. I think, there are people who probably have like spreadsheets about really what the difference is. But like for me as like a paranormal reader and a paranormal writer, for me there's like the wolf shifter world where it's like there's man and then there's like wolf. Then there's kind of like in between gray area where it could be man wolf, and that's more lichen as far as I know. Um, and there can be like in between versions of them, and that's where you get like these niches. I feel like monster romance has kind of leaned away from. So in the beginning, shifter stuff was pretty much like wolves were huge and still are, and I love a good wolf shifter book. Like
Right.
hello, wolves were huge. I think it got into like the big cats, like pretty much any big predatory animal was like, yes, please give me more. And it started to shift into there was like Demon Angel got really big. And then now it's more like I'm trying to think of a few of the big ones. I haven't read any yet, but I see them all over like book talk and shit. It's like the krakens and like the tentacle type situation, and just like different kind of like I don't think they're really demonic, but just different kind of like beasts and monsters that are not just wolves and shit. So yeah, there's like different branches. But like for me, like shifter, lichen, that's kind of the same world, and I would vibe with both. I feel like if you like one, you probably would like the other.
No, I agree. I'm not gonna lie, I actually don't see the difference. I kind of figure when I say shifter, my first thought process is, of course, going straight for wolf.
Yeah.
However, we've met some other types, haven't we? Specifically in somebody's series. I don't know who that could be. There's so many different
Yeah,
variations.
there's really like anything that you can just be like, oh, I'm gonna make this a thing and write about it, and then it just is. And then other people are like, oh, that's hot. I'm gonna write about that too. And that's sort of how these tropes. I feel like that's sort of how it starts. Somebody gets like an idea, they go for it, it hits with readers, and then other people are like, oh, I can do something with that too, and then it just explodes.
Is there a difference between born or created lichens? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
Hands down, yeah.
I think it depends upon the world, like whatever the world that exists in the story that you're reading, um, like how they set up that world. Like sometimes there can be like differences in abilities, sometimes there can be like moon dependency as opposed to non-moon dependency for shifting. Like there's so many different things you can do with that world, with those characters, with that kind of trope. It literally is endless.
Well, I would think that the best advice for a reader or an author is to almost like cut off any prior influence, go into that world and stay there when you're either reading or writing. Because if you bring outside influence, right? So, oh, well, what about the moon? Well, maybe in this world, the moon isn't as big of an influence, or maybe it is everything, right?
Right.
Maybe it
Right.
literally is everything and it's not over here. You got to go into the store you're in and like forget about JC Penney while you're in Dillard's, okay? You just have to like deal with where you are. And that's where I say you have to immerse yourself into that, in my
Yeah, it's a whole
opinion.
process. Like for me, when I start writing, I love that somebody mentioned Shadowed Wings because I did write a shifter series about griffins.
I know that's why
And
I
I
was
was like,
hinting that.
oh,
Did you hear me?
shifters, and I
I was like
completely
wink
forgot.
wink. Some author wink
That's
wink wink
Griffin.
that we know.
I did happen to write that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Jesus fuck. Real talk, I'm writing the third series in a world that I started, the Sentinel world. And
Yay.
and I got to this third series and I was like, fuck, I feel like I'm missing a lot of like the little threads that I know I want to tie together. So I had to go back and read my own series because it's been a minute since I published the last series in that world and I've written a bunch in between. So I had to go back and read my own books. I felt a little bit like an idiot, but at the same time, it was fun because I forgot some of the things that I had done or just some of the like threads that I was weaving and I knew I was going to wrap up. And so it's funny when like you're going through your own stuff and you're like, damn girl, you're good. And I was like, all right, get it. So I've had to do that. And I'm like,
Like,
but
wow,
I
this
forget
is
all
a
the time
really
about
good
what I read.
book.
You
Who
did
wrote
good. No
this?
wonder people like this.
Oh shit.
More
It
than
was
you.
me.
It was a nice break from like the imposter syndrome of like, what the fuck am I doing that I typically feel when I'm getting ready to publish. So it's like a nice validating moment.
Well,
So I
there
love that I completely forgot. Yeah.
well,
I did write a Griffin Shifter book
Sarah's
series.
talking about the monster romance. Now, I'm going to tell you my opinion on this. This is just my
Hmm.
personal opinion. Um,
Here for it.
okay, so my genres in my brain, right? And I'm talking
Hmm.
specifically on the paranormal supernatural side of things would be shifter, like I said, immediately goes to wolf. Shifter also could be any other animal where they go man animal or woman animal, whatever. I'm not being sexist here, I don't care. They go like from man to animal and back, like they shift fully. To me, that's a shifter. If you go towards monster, to me, monsters could potentially include vampires, but they usually don't. That's more in the solid supernatural side of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, angels and demons could actually cross over into the monster side depending on what kind of
Yep.
monster or demon that you write about.
Totally
Whether
agree.
they're ones that do shift or not, because there's demons that don't, like the lesser demons might not shift and they're solid monsters, right? Or like gods and stuff, those go into, I think, supernatural side. I love gods and goddesses. I'm all about that.
Yeah,
And
they're so big right now. The whole Hades, Persephone, just like I've seen so many of those, that I feel like Greek gods, like that whole thing is super big. It might be dying down a little bit, but it was big for like the last year or two. There's
no,
tons.
seriously, I found a bunch, and I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like to find series when it's just starting because then I can't binge read all of them in a row, and I get
Oh,
pissed off. I don't want
there's
to wait.
such a debate about that in the writer reader world right now. This big debate about waiting to finish a series versus not waiting, and there's this big argument. Have you seen this like in the do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing though, is okay, so this is a question that I actually have discussions with artists about, like behind the scenes and stuff. We talk about this. When's the right time to put out another song? I have another one
Mhm.
potentially ready or almost ready. Should I push that one or should I kind of hold back and give it a little bit of build up, right?
Right.
And I
Breathing room.
always advise to give a little bit of breathing room, but be careful, especially if it's directly affiliated. Like if you have a three part, like I know somebody, her name's Kat Calling. She's been on here before. She's an amazing
Hmm.
singer. She has a three
Hmm.
part songs that have like they all kind of go together. It's like a trilogy.
Um,
she gave enough breathing room. She made videos for each one, but she didn't wait like a year and a half to drop a song. So
uh,
the interest was still there. Now, if you're dropping one every other day, that's way beyond.
right. You could
For
saturate the market too much for
for
sure.
I was reading Kings of Quarantine, by the way, another one of my favorite series.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely love that one. But the last book, I swear to God, I waited like 11 years for that, which it's been
Yeah.
like months. But still, I was dying because I'm like, or the Zodiac. There's a Zodiac.
Zodiac Academy. Yep.
Thank you, Zodiac Academy. I was like, oh my God, are they still star-crossed? What's
I
happening?
think that's like one of the hardest things as an author to gauge
Yeah,
and to manage because so in like the beginning as an indie, you really have to come in hard and you have to come in fast. And the reality of the situation is there's a fuck ton of luck that's involved in whether you like get readers' attention or you don't. It's not always about like my story just kicks everyone else's ass and that's why it's taking off. No, it just sometimes you have the right character, the right world, the right vibe for readers at that moment and everything connects and you're really fucking lucky and it takes off and does what it does. And that's an incredible experience. But you have to come in hard and fast. Like I feel like the first 2+ years of me writing, I was trying to put out, I think I was putting out books like every 3-ish months, which is insane. It's an insane like time frame and just going hard. And then I've slowly started to slow down because I just couldn't keep up with that pace. Burnout is a bitch. But yeah, when you're trying to establish yourself in the beginning, I feel like a lot of indies come in and they are just pushing out books and showing their reader base that they can be trusted with their dollar, that you know that you're a solid investment, you're always going to deliver a good story. But it is a constant kind of give and take of trying to get good stuff out to people quicker because it is like a lot of the community they're binge readers and they are looking for the next story, the next adventure, the next character to fall in love with, the next world to be immersed in. And if you're not there delivering, somebody else will be, and they will just move on. And so it's definitely a fight to keep you in front of readers' eyes, keep your stories in front of them, show that you can be trusted to take them on adventure, but at the same time, like not literally kill yourself
right.
writing crazy and putting stuff out. It's a hard balance for sure.
Well, I see that first Carlotta says, thank you for writing Scorpions as one book. Yes, thank you. Because I have noticed, by the way, there's a big difference between a multi-part series, right? Where it kind of ends at the right space, either as a cliffhanger or not, doesn't matter, at the
Right.
right place. And when someone has taken a book, and split it into 3 parts just so that you have to wait.
I get a lot of this from people because I fucking love a good cliffhanger. Like I live for a good cliffhanger. As a reader, I fucking love it. I love when I get to the end of a book and I'm like, "What the fuck?" And then I'm immediately looking for the next book and
Oh,
I'm
I know, I
completely
yell.
invested. Like, but I am aware that that is not the average like feeling of your average reader. Like most don't like that. And so I had, when I put stuff out, I get a lot of feedback, good and bad, about cliffhangers and having to wait for the next book and all of that. So when I was writing Scorpions, I knew from the beginning I just wanted like a solid standalone. And I felt like, there are a ton of people with really killer series that are coming out right now, and there's a ton of readers waiting for the next book. And, so I just felt like if I could get out one solid, like, standalone book, that it would kind of like be a good position for me to be in. And so far that's paying off. So I've had, it's doing great. And, but I've had a lot of people who, even though they know it's a standalone, they're like, we want more. Like, we want more
Right.
in that world. And so it then becomes like a debate for me to be like, okay, I technically could do more in that world. I technically could. But do I, or do I just leave it as it is? So you just never know. You never know as an indie too, like well, probably even as trad pub. Um, you just don't know what's gonna hit. You don't know what you're gonna write that's gonna resonate. And some things like do amazing and some things, fall flat on their ass and it's like a trial by error kind of thing. But yeah. I saw someone ask, that if I knew when I wrote Shadowed Wings that I was going to tie it into the Sentinel world. And yes, I did know. So I had this kind of plan for Sentinel World. Um, like, I had this plan for spin-off characters. I had this plan for her sept. But I kind of fucked it up because when I released the first book in the Shadowed Wing series, The Hidden, I didn't tell anyone that it was connected to the Sentinel world because it was kind of spoilers. And
Yeah.
the way that I did it is I had written the first, no, fuck, I think I'd written the first 2 or 3 books in the Lost Sentinel series, which was my first series ever. And it took off like crazy and is the reason I'm able to do this today. And so I knew I was going to continue to write in that series and I wanted to get people kind of hyped about it, but I didn't want to connect them yet because I didn't want to spoil anything for the last book in the Lost Sentinel series. So I fucked that up because a lot of people even now don't know that they're connected. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm having to go back and kind of rebrand that whole world. So I got new covers done. I'm getting new covers done for the Shadowed Wings series that tie them all together and then like brand them together as a series so people know that they're connected. But in the beginning I fucked that up. I had no idea what I was doing. So people are like, wait, what? There's other books in this series? And I'm like, yes, go read it, please.
Well,
My bad.
Jess has a perfect question to segue into. For those of us who haven't read her books yet, what book or series would Ivy suggest to start with? And also, I'm going to
Oh,
ask, I know you've got readers in chat. I'm asking your readers also to
oh yeah,
answer what they would
better.
prefer if they're as a reader. And I would love to know what you would think. Like, what's you on a platter, right? Like Gordon Ramsay says, what you want to plate.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm literally the worst fucking person at selling my shit. So, literally the worst. When people are like, "Oh, which," and I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know if you like me. It's okay if you don't. It's fine. I love you anyway." Um, so for me, I feel like it depends because I have different books for different kind of readers. I'm a mood reader, and I'm also kind of a mood writer, so I sort of just get an idea and I just go with it. I would say that probably my biggest selling series right now is the Lost Sentinel series, and that's very much paranormal, reverse harem, badass chick vibes. And
Not
I
just a
have,
reverse harem, like the ultimate reverse harem.
oh, you're too nice. I don't know about that. I mean, I really liked it, but I'm super biased. So, um, I have a lot of, I'm trying to think of like what breeders in my groups and stuff talk about the most. I have tons of love for like Vinna from The Lost Sentinel. I wrote another series that's more male female, so just one man, one woman, and it's very kind of like urban fantasy, paranormal romance vibes. It's a little slower burn. And that's the Aussies Chronicles, and the first book in that is The Bone Witch. That's a good read like during Halloween. So if you're a mood reader and you like kind of like witchy vibes, that's a good one. Um, if you like high fantasy and you want to get really lost in like world building, you like things a little bit darker, then my latest release, Order of Scorpions, is solid. But the second book in my Sentinel World series is also a little bit darker. And it's more fantasy. It's more kind of like a fantasy paranormal hybrid. So, um, yeah, and then I have co-writes that I've done with my bestie. We have like a really good, if you like Wolf Shifter, a little bit darker, we have a book called Rabid that like people who love shifter books, they've been here for it. And we had so much fun writing it. And it's super like dark and dirty and like super like aggressively yummy.
I'm
So
writing
yeah,
that down. Hold on.
Rabbit is a good one. Raven and I have also, we do, when Raven and I write together, we do more like quirky, funny books. So we have our first book we ever put out together is something called April's Fools. And it's like a post-apocalyptic sort of like end of the world rom-com, which is a weird combo, but like it kind of has a really funny cult following. Like you either love it or you hate it. And then our biggest series as co-writers, other than Rabid, is the Hellgate Guardian series, which we started writing that off of a meme that somebody put in our reader groups and asked us to write it.
I
It
read
was
it.
like Have you seen that there's a meme that was like, if you got paid $80 an hour to work in a graveyard, like would you take it kind of thing? It was a funny meme. And somebody was like, I need this book. And so Raven and I saw that and we're like, let's write that book. So we wrote a series about a girl who takes a job working in a graveyard, but really it's a hell gate. And so she
I
gets
still
sucked
haven't got
into.
over the blue. I haven't got over that yet. I haven't got over that. Like, I read them, obviously, but I just hadn't. I don't know why. I just think of Aladdin. I think it's Genie for some reason. That's all I can picture.
That's so funny.
But
Because when we were writing it, we were picturing almost like Beast from X-Men, but like super hot.
oh,
And
gotcha,
like
gotcha.
with a tail that could fuck you. Yeah, it was a different kind of it
Yeah.
wasn't Aladdin.
But that's the thing.
Although I read some hot genie books. Like, hello.
I haven't
So
gotten to that. Like, I have. That's just not a rabbit hole I've gone down yet. And
some
like, I'm that creepy person who likes, for example, like a TV show. Like, for example, Once Upon a Time, but the spin-off for Alice in Wonderland. Oh my God,
okay. I don't
fucking
think I've
love
seen it.
that.
Is it good?
Like, oh God, yeah. And it plus, I could just picture if they'd have just like tipped the scale a little bit further, they could have made that so dirty. It would have been great. Like, if those characters, if you ever Google it or whatever, I can't remember what is. Oh, Once Upon a Time in Neverland or in Wonderland, I think is what it's called, something like that.
Okay.
She posted a genie. um, it's if those characters, like the way that they kind of are, they're dressed and the kind of quirky behavior behind them,
Uh-huh.
like were the characters from some of these books that I absolutely love, I would just be in heaven. Like, I'm the
Right.
person who thinks that all my favorite books need to be movies or like needs to be a series, and it
Uh-huh.
pisses me off that they have skipped over what I call my dirty book, my favorite dirty books. Like, hello,
Right.
people. Like, why are you going with like the Notebook, bro? That's not what we want to see. Oh, it's so sweet. No,
Yeah. I
no.
think that there's something kind of like in the wind changing. I can't say a lot about this, but I think with the whole just like indie world, we're getting more indie producers and we're getting more interest from some of the bigger Netflixes and Prime Video. Like they're all scrambling for content. They're all scrambling for like the next thing that's going to make people subscribe and
Well, yeah, because
watch.
they're just remaking everything now. They have.
Exactly. But there are people who are there. I'm trying to figure out the best way I can say this. I've been reached out about, people have reached out to me like in the movie, like TV show industry or just like media agent sphere. And I know a lot of other reverse harem indie writers who have been reached, like people have reached out to them as well. And so it'll be interesting if anything comes from it. You never know.
Yeah.
But I definitely think there is a little bit of a change in because there's this scramble for content. And so I think anything that kind of hits like above like 50 in the Amazon store immediately kind of grabs attention from some of these like media peeps. And so who knows, we could, I don't know that we will, but I would love to see like a reverse harem type situation on like an actual Netflix type thing. And I think there's interest there, so we'll just see what happens. Like I think that's one of the cool things just about like indie anything is that it just opens it, instead of having these like big um producers constantly just making kind of the same movie over and over again or the same rom-com over and over again. I think people are realizing that consumers are tired of that. And so they're looking for like original content. And so who knows what will happen. But it's cool to think that maybe one of the kick-ass like reverse harem writers out there might get a deal or something. You never know.
No, absolutely. And here's the thing. Yes, Jess, that was Freddie. He'd me out at us, everybody. So he was trying to jump on my computer, and I was in the middle of throwing him. Not throwing him mean, but like throwing him.
Yes, like get out of my face. I love you.
Like, don't you dare push a button and end this live. Right now, I'll be pissed
Don't
off.
fuck this up for me.
But on top of that, like,
I like to shut my door and we have like these vibrating bark collars for our dogs that we put on them at night because they're little menaces.
ah,
So we put collars on them because I was like, please don't like start screaming at the Amazon dude because I have a billion deliveries in a day.
she thought Cat was saying hi to Meow. By the way, I know Meow was a flyby, but What's up, Meow? He's one of my mods. Um, now I was gonna say, okay, this sounds so silly, and maybe it is, or it isn't. I'm not saying that everything. I'm not saying that everything needs to be a full-on production, right? And I'm
Hmm.
talking, of course, I'm talking in the TV space. I'm talking in the streaming. I'm talking video content.
Right.
Okay, so here's my idea. Wouldn't it make sense to get an indie producer, an indie director? I'm talking about good ones. I'm not talking about like it's so grainy you can't even see what's on the screen kind of stuff. Like at
Mhm.
least, have some kind of quality. I'm sure people would donate it. They're missing this huge, huge group of people who are so into this genre, it's not even funny. To have a recurring, even a mini series, a recurring, where like once a month they put out a new, they make a book into a movie, like a, a mini series. And I'm not talking high end because that would take forever,
Hmm.
right? It would take forever. It would cost all kinds of money, which, a lot of people don't have. I certainly don't.
Right.
But to see, even if it was like taking a book, especially ones that are series, especially relevant ones that people just love. And I'm not saying I don't necessarily think the top 50 either. I'm talking like fan favorites more than sales favorites, if that makes sense.
Right. I just don't know if there's a platform that supports it right now because I feel like it is about like big production. And I mean, obviously, the big marketing machines, they want to get as much money out of something as they can. So they really want something that's almost proven itself.
Oh,
Like,
no,
you
no.
know?
I don't. I disagree, and here's why. I
Mhm.
guarantee you, if they had a pay like a HBO Max like type subscription channel for that content, I bet you every single person that reads your books would sign up for that. Don't even play with me. You know they would. We would all sign up for it. We would subscribe to it for that content, even while it first started. Do a Kickstarter, get that going. Like, come on now. You know they would, and that if, with how lucrative this genre, like I'm saying, let's say romance slash erotica slash whatever, like we're not even gonna
Right.
narrow it down further, is
Right.
so huge. I'm not talking bodice rippers necessarily because I used to be into that when I was younger. I'm
Hmm.
just like, no, I want dark and dirty. I was married for 14 years. You know,
Yeah.
I I
Yeah.
I don't need the, oh, you touched my hand. I'm
Yes.
fainting. No, 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 no. I want you to pull my hair metaphorically, like, through the
Yeah.
book. I want you to pull my hair and I want you to like do your dirty stuff and I'm gonna enjoy every moment.
Yeah.
Living vicariously through the books, of course.
Yeah. Of course.
We'll say that. And I'm just saying, like, in all honesty, it's so huge and so many people absolutely love it. It's such a big
Right.
deal to
Yeah.
think for any reason by any producer, aside from the fact that it can get, you're basically signing up for porn if you're going to do that. And don't, like, let's not lie
Right.
about it. That's pretty much what it
Yeah.
is. But if you get the right people and you sign it up, I'm not talking icky porn. I'm talking like as tasteful as it gets. Like, did you see Harlots on Hulu?
No, I haven't. Is it really good?
I liked it. I liked the first
Mhm.
season best, but and they got down and dirty. So, I'm just saying you can do it in a way where it's not all that matters, but when they do it, it's not like it blanks out before anything good happens. Like,
Right. No fade to black shit. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. It frosts my cookies. I hate that stuff. I hate fade to black so much.
But that's the
Nothing will get me like more like fuck this shit than like when I'm reading something really good and suddenly there's a fade to black moment. I'm like, don't do this to me, author. Don't do this to me. And then I'm like, no, I'm done.
yeah,
Don't fade to black.
I mean, it's a book. I can choose to skip a page if I want. I don't, but I could. I'm just saying, with as big as this genre is, as many people as I don't care if it's in like behind closed doors. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's
Right.
like one of the biggest genres out there. Period. I think
Right.
I'm right with that. You
Yeah,
cannot tell
romance
me
in
that.
general is the biggest selling genre of books, period, in the world.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no way, right? There is no way that that would not take the book off. It's just people not
Well, I
wanting to take
totally
the
agree.
risk.
I completely agree. But I just think it comes down to, and I think I have hope that we'll start to see stuff like this in the future because I feel like the people controlling the money and in the investment, like that's diversifying. So it's not just like, um, making movies and shows that really target only one kind of audience. So I feel like we're seeing more diversification in general. We're seeing more interest in a lot of these romance types books, and like I don't know if someone will create a platform where we can see like more series or access to more of these like different things. I would love that, but I don't know. It could happen. It would
And,
just take somebody like wanting to start that kind of a production company, and I don't know if there's anyone out there right now. Um,
well, it's a
but
fine line, right? Because it can really dive into like where it comes more towards, pornography versus being, part of a story. Because I'm sorry,
yeah,
there's a big difference, y'all guys in the chat, love y'all, but there's a big difference. I mean, you're not reading the articles, and people reading the books are actually reading for the characters more so than just those scenes, I believe.
yeah, I think there are different kinds of like they're referred to typically as like heat levels in like the reader community, and there are different kinds of heat and there are different kinds of heat levels in books. I'm kind of I think I fall in the middle like with how I write because I as an adult woman want to read books about like kick-ass chicks and hot dudes and amazing worlds, and for me like I want payoff too. I want there to be angst between the main character and either the men or men depending upon what book you're reading.
Hmm.
I want there to be build up. I want to be like literally like waiting for the moment that they're ready to like fucking take it to the next level.
Right.
But when I'm writing a sex scene, I also I have a tendency not to like tip over on like the vulgar scale. I like a little dirty talk. I like to describe like what's happening, but I'm not like so wrapped up in like every single detail of his hand is here and this is happening and that it's more like trying to create that moment that you as a reader can then picture that gets you like hot and bothered and gives you the payoff for that character arc or that love story arc.
Right.
But then there are authors out there who, and I hate to call it vulgar because in my mind it's not like that. It's just a different kind of sex where it is more like erotica, titillizing, tantalizing type stuff where they really like create more of a different kind of POV type of sex scene. And so there are just there's so many different ways to write it, different ways to present it, different ways to put it in a book. Books, there are books you can pick up where, you just want to get all hot and bothered real quick, do your thing, and then move on.
Yeah.
And then there are books where you want like a whole ass world, a whole ass, you know, all these characters, you want to get sucked in, but you also need that payoff as part of it. But the sex isn't like the main focus. So for me, I write sex in my books, but it's not the main focus of the entire story. And then there are lots of books out there where like sex is that's it. You're there to like read a good hard fuck and then like there's not
Yeah.
a ton of plot necessarily. So um there's just so many different options and so many different ways, and I feel like with entertainment, like visual entertainment, movies, shows and stuff like that, I feel like we will get there. There is that fuck, what is it called? I've heard about it but I haven't watched it. It's like do you know what I'm talking about? There is a platform, I think it's like a website where they do it's mostly contemporary romance, but they do books and they do show like full sex scenes in like their movies or shows. I want to call it skin flicks, but I don't think that's actually what
Jess
it's
said, what
called.
about passion flicks?
Passion flicks, yes, there's that.
Yeah, Jess said,
I
what
don't
about passion
know.
flicks? I've never heard of
Yes.
it, so.
So Passion Flicks is a thing. I haven't watched it, and as far as I know, they primarily create like contemporary romance type
Hmm.
movies and shows. I don't know that they've dipped into paranormal, but they definitely have like actors. They do a whole storyline. They show full on sex scenes. Like it's a whole vibe. So and it does well as far as I know.
Well, see,
Does anyone watch it?
I personally don't. And see, contemporary is not necessarily my jam. I,
It's not my thing.
like, of course, I'm a hermit. That's besides the point. But, like, I live my life every day in the current world. I don't necessarily want to read about other people that are schmucking along in the current world. I
Right.
want either a new world or old world or, you know, something different, right? I need something different. I don't want it to be like, they went to McDonald's and Whataburger. Like, to
Right.
me, I don't know why,
You
but
don't need all that. Yeah.
that takes away from it a little bit. Um, but that's my opinion. Like I said, it's different strokes for different folks. Everybody likes something different. You know,
Yes. I
I
do. I will say, like, I'm not a huge contemp romance fan, although it's a massive, massive genre. But I do love a good sports romance, which is really funny for me. Like sometimes when I need a palate cleanser after a book or something, I need to get out of a world and get into a new world, I will find a hockey romance. Those are my favorite. I'll find like a hockey romance and just be like, let's do this. Let's do this. Sticks and pucks all the way. Let's do it. I do like a good sports romance. I don't know how accurate they are on the sport front, but like the sex is killer, so I'm here for it.
Well, we previously had Izzy Sweet and Sean Moriarty on,
Oh,
and Sean writes his standalones are generally go figure, they're sports guys.
are they?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm just saying, like they're a really cool dynamic because they've been married forever, you know, and they
Is
write
it a
together.
wife author? Are they like, do they write together?
Yeah, they write together, and they
Oh,
actually they trade off when we talked about it. They were on the podcast. They're the first authors we ever had on, and I've been friends with them for a while. Like I've been,
I'm a dumbass. I watched that. I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I
yeah.
watched that. You sent me the link. Yeah? Yeah, I watched. My
Where
bad.
they trade off how they write and stuff, and like they
Yeah.
argue over like, oh my god, like what did you write? Like you killed off my.
Did you just do that? Yeah. That's very much the vibe with like a co-write situation. And co-writes are I have to say, between my individual writes and my co-writes are faster and they're easier because you're like feeding off of somebody else and you're like hyping each other up. And it's like not just on you to get like your word count up. And like, I swear when Raven and I write, we can write books in like a month. And then when it's just me, I've gotten a lot slower, but every day it's like, fuck, I only wrote like 3,000 words when you think you wrote like 6, and then you check your word count and you're like, fuck my life. That wasn't enough. I need more. But co-writes are the best. So I love their whole vibe, and the fact that they get to like feed off of each other for every story. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think he writes usually the man voice, and she writes the female voice. Like you know, and that makes sense.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I like, and I feel this way. This is something that comes up very often on this podcast and as a whole, and in this community, we're all about the collab. Like right now, anybody that's not aware, it's actually we're not doing it tonight. We did it last night, and we're gonna be doing it again next Wednesday. But this whole community, and then the Team Supreme community, y'all know Truth No Lie. We're doing this EP that we're coming out with an EP with all these different artists, right? And it's the community
Uh-huh.
gets to vote on the beats that they use. Because
Oh,
I
that's cool.
and we were voting on those last night live.
Oh,
Um,
that's super cool.
and you know stuff like that, and then all the artists that are signing on for it, I know most of them personally. I've introduced most of them personally. So you know it's just interesting, like it's a collab effort, so I'm all for. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not the person who likes the 8 writers in one book thing. I'm not. That's
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also am a little iffy on the series written by a different, like, and I understand why they do it. Like, you'd write one book and then they'd write another book and then she'd write the third book, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's a different voice to me.
Yeah, I think that's harder to do unless your writing styles and the way that you picture a story and communicate that story, unless that's like almost identical, yeah, you're gonna have completely different voice for every one of those, which I guess could be cool or not, depending upon how you feel about it as a reader.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I can hear the voice, so I know that I
Mhm.
can tell. And I don't want to tell. I don't even want to, no offense, I don't want to think about that when I'm reading. I want to be immersed, right? I don't want to
You want
think
to feel the
about,
same vibe all the way through. Yeah, especially for a series.
yeah.
I
Well,
could see if you had like standalone books in the same world, but even that can, yeah, I probably wouldn't do it personally. I don't know who it would work for, but I think there are those groups out there where it's like 8 people writing under a pen name. And they seem to do decent, so works for whoever.
hey, like I said, and whatever works, and maybe they're doing it, and I read it and I loved it and didn't know, and that's fine too. For some reason, there's just a thing for me. I tend to hear, like, I can tell when it's a different tone. Like you can
Okay.
tell when, you know, I don't know. It's just me
Yeah.
though. And by the way,
Yeah.
Scuba, are you really saying Misery is your favorite romance novel? Are you talking Misery by Stephen King? Like, I'm your number one fan.
I think he's also the guy who said that he only likes books with pictures in them.
Oh,
But I have to say a lot of the a lot of the indie romance books have like dirty character art that come out with their books.
I just
And
recently learned to Google for it.
dude, yes, it's so fucking hot. Like, there's dirty character art, and then just character art in general, and then there are new formatters who do pictures like on chapter headings and pages and stuff. So like the visual and the writing are coming together, and with like what AI is doing right now, as far as like you can get character art and world art through these like AI platforms now. A lot of authors are doing that because it's difficult to find character artists who you can actually get in with them and they can like get you character art close to a publication is really difficult. But with AI, you can do all sorts of like interesting things for your world and your characters. And I haven't seen any dirty AI character like reproductions yet, but yeah, there is 18 plus scandalous, like full on hot as fuck art that comes out with some of these books, and it's so good. So good.
Well, I just realized that I could Google, and you could guess what series was the first one I Googled, which would be my favorite reverse harem series. It just is what it is. And I was like, oh, that's what I kind of was thinking. Like, I can picture in my head what I think characters look like. And sometimes, what's fun fact, I don't actually have to picture them fully. I can just have an idea of who they are, right?
Yeah.
Over to the side, like, okay, I know that one's blonde. This one's like kind of nerdy, but of course they're all going to be hot. So, like, what does that matter? One's like shaped like Thor, whatever, in my brain. But putting an actual, and the cool thing is that when I have Googled for those, the characters stay consistent. And so what would piss me off is if I would Google, let's just say for the people in the Sentinel world, right? If I would Google for them and then this group, oh, here they are, but then here's the same character names, but they have different pictures. They all look different. Like, well, wait a minute. I understand that it's different people's perspectives, but I like to kind of, once it gets locked in your brain, you're like, oh, that's what they look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I didn't know.
Was told early on, like when I was releasing books, because when I write, and I don't know a ton of people who do this. I know a couple other writers who write in like a similar way to me, but like I very much picture a movie in my head. Like I will sit and daydream and visually like see things play out. Like I even have soundtracks in my head. Like I make soundtracks with all of the books that I release, and I will literally get an idea of like a kind of song or something that will be playing in the moment. So like I do like a full-on movie in my head and then I just write it down. Like I like write it out and that's the book. And so I was told early on when, especially with Sentinel, because I started to kind of like release how I saw the characters and like how I saw certain things of the world. And I had a lot of authors who were like, don't do it. Don't do it. Let them picture it how they want to picture it. Don't fuck with their vibe. And I think it could go either way because I'm a really visual person. And so sometimes I like confirmation of like what I picture in my head for a certain series. And then sometimes it can fuck you up because if they've got something like really different than how you picture something, you're like, no, that's wrong. Sorry.
No, that's kind of how I am.
You fucked that up.
Sarah, I'm with you. I can't get a face on people either. Like, it's like those dreams where you know who it is. Like, you know who it is, but you can't remember what they look like, their faces. Right. I'm not saying a blank face like in a scary book, okay?
No,
that's not what I'm talking
totally know exactly what you're talking about. Like, you're not, I mean, and the thing is with characters, like, it's not like a person you've seen. Like, you have to create that image in your head, which not everyone can do. That's not like a skill everyone has where you can read a bunch of words on a page and, like, actually create a face in your brain. So I totally get what you're saying, where it's like, you know their personalities, you know like what they'll do, you know what you find attractive about like their dialogue and their personality, but like the face isn't like, you're not like, oh yeah, that's Jason Momoa. Yeah, no, I get that.
Well, that's my thing is when I'm reading, I'm not visual as much. I don't picture it, and I read really, 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 really fast.
Are you like a super fast one?
Well, I mean, like,
like the book just came out and you read it in 3 hours.
Yeah, pretty
much.
Well,
are you? I love that.
I read Order of the Scorpions. I read that same day.
You did?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's killer, because that is a thick one. She is thick. So I love that. Thank you for reading that. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing though, is I think it was oh my God, who was it I was talking to? I have to look now because I've had a brain fart. and I'm a jerk for it. So, you know,
No,
Cassie,
it's
I was
like,
talking to Cassie Hargrove, and I was like,
uh-huh.
I was going through one of her books, and I was showing her typos.
Oh, uh-huh.
Because, you know, I know all authors appreciate that. Not really, but
No,
still.
we do. We're like, don't report this to Amazon, but feel free to email me and I will fix it,
Well,
please.
I was sending it to her, and it's funny because then, like, later that evening, I sent her another one. It's from a different book, like, over three-quarters in, and she's like, wait a minute, you were just on. I was like, well, I finished it and moved on. Like, what did you want me to do?
When I first started writing, I was like, okay, I don't know how long a book is supposed to be. Because honestly, when I joke about how I'm a legitimate fluke in this industry because I didn't have like the dream when I was younger that I wanted to be a writer. I didn't think that people did this for a living. It wasn't part of my reality. Like my reality was like you graduated, if you were lucky you got to go to college. If not, you picked up your 9 to 5 job, you worked your ass off, sometimes 2 jobs if you needed to. And that was like what life looked like. That was my world. So I never really thought about this as an option. And so after I had a kid, and I was just like super lonely and bored and reading a lot. And I had this idea for a character in a book. And I was like, I'm going to write a book. And I told my husband, he was like, all right, bro, do what you want to do. Like, he didn't take it seriously. I didn't really take it that seriously because who just decides out of nowhere that they're like, I'm just going to write a book. And so
Me?
I just,
Oh,
I
hey,
just
I'm just going
did.
to start a podcast. What does this button do? Oh, we're live. Let's
No, for
go.
real, right? You're just like, I'm doing this. And so I had no business. I had no idea how to write dialogue. I had no idea like the rules of book writing because there are a lot of fucking rules. I just like kind of went for it. And then after the fact, I had to like go back and try to fix stuff. But I remember Googling like, okay, how long is like a 90,000 word book? How long does that take the average reader to read? Like 6 hours. And so I was like, oh, that's a good amount of time. So I kind of positioned how long my books were based on like how long a read was because I didn't want it to be too long. I didn't want it to be too short. So like that 90,000, 100,000 like word count is like my little sweet spot because it's like a 6, 7 hour book. But then you have people probably like you who read it like in three.
Yeah,
Do you like cut that time in half probably or even less?
less.
Yeah. Like I'll get people in a reader group, like I'll have just released at midnight. And then like 3 hours later, like, read it, it's great. And I'm like, how the fuck did
Yeah.
you read it that fast? Like that's insane.
Yeah,
Like
I read really,
insane.
really fast. And let me
So
tell you
cool.
right now, if you wait a slow burn for 90,000 words before they make whoopee, I'm gonna be pissy because it's like, bro, at some point you should have they like you like him, like let's
Yeah.
go. Like
Yeah. I get that, but like I kind of did that in Order of
I
Scorpions. I
know.
mean, Order of Scorpions is a fatty. You're like, listen, bitch, I know. I was like worried. I was like, fuck, they're not fucking until really late in this book. But I'm like, I looked back over it and I was like, could I cut any of this out? And I just felt like I couldn't. I was like, it kind of just has to be. I'm like, people might come for me on this because the
No.
payoff isn't until the end and it's a huge book. But so far I've only gotten a couple emails about it, so I think it's good.
No, I think that's the thing, is it doesn't bother me at all. I'm talking more like if you go into you have to get to the third book. Like
Right,
to
yeah,
me, I'm
that.
like, come on now.
Yeah, yeah, I hear
Like
that.
that's ridiculous. I'm just I'm all for the oops, we did it again books too, where they're
Oh,
like,
uh-huh.
oops, I tripped and fell on your dick. Like, my bad.
I
And then
fucking
they're
hate
like,
you, but let me suck you up. Yeah, I get it.
we're still not together and I don't like you and we're enemies or whatever. Cool,
Yeah,
cool. But oops,
yeah.
I did it again.
I swear to God, I wouldn't do that, but I did that. No, I feel that. I am like just a sucker for like,
See,
I
Sarah
haven't
likes the
gotten,
slow burn. There you go.
yeah, just I really love like a good enemies to lovers type situation. I feel like that's what I write a lot of. I just love it. I don't know if I will ever stop loving it. Um, yeah, I just never feel the same way about like a friends to lovers type situation. All of my favorite books have to have like that angst.
Yes,
They
I
just
agree.
have to have like that like fuck you moment, but you're still really hot, so we'll think about this. Like we'll consider it. We won't take it off the table, the fact that we could, go at it later. So it's just so good. It's so good. It's delicious.
Well, I mean, and there's also you got to have that back and forth. You've got to have like that the conflict between, especially let's just say the main male, main female, whatever, whoever the main
Hmm.
characters are, because and this is my personal preference, y'all, and this is nothing against anyone that loves this. If you love this, Cool. I'm good with that.
Same,
But
same. Not dogging anyone's vibe
yeah,
because
don't
books
yuck my
are,
yum. I get it. It's cool.
yes, I love that saying. Don't yuck my
but
yum.
but
So
the
good.
but the thing is like okay, so it's like I know I've no I'm breathing one now. I've known you since you were young. We grew up together. I've
Uh-huh.
loved you forever. And now suddenly we're together. I worship the ground you walk on, and then we're dealing together against other outside forces. Where's the conflict between y'all? I don't need to hear you whisper sweet nothings and
Right,
like, especially when the guy's gushing, like, "Oh my God, you're the best in the world." Stop.
right.
Like, shoot him up with some testosterone and let's go. Like, let's do this. Like,
Yeah,
have a little bit
it's
of
so funny. I see all the time people talk about how like red flags in books and like in real life, none of these things would be acceptable. Like none of the dominating, like just throw you over the shoulder, like we're going, like they would never be acceptable. But like
well,
in a book, oh, it's so hot.
well. I
So
mean,
you're
if anybody, feel free. Like, just say
right.
it.
You're like not me personally. I'm game, real life, book life. I'm here.
I mean, I can make an arrangement first, just so I am aware. But aside from that, it's kind of anyway.
So here for you're like I'm a girl with an open mind. As you should be.
I'm so,
Good
uh,
things. Good things.
I'm sorry, I had to.
I
Because
just read on here Sarah's talking about hate fucking. Yes, Sarah. Oh my god. Hate
yes,
fucking.
of
Yes.
course.
Yes. But like some people hate it. But I'm not one of those
Yeah,
people.
I'm not one of those people either. Because like there's, I mean, talk about angst. There you go.
Right.
But I prefer that eventually they end up like the be all end all. Like I love, characters that they fight it. And I'm not saying fight it like I'm in love with you. No, I like okay. So
Right.
that's where the Zodiac Academy lost me for a little while. Was the Star-Crossed? I couldn't do that. I was really upset. Like I was so pissed off. I almost didn't finish the series. I was so angry.
What was this series?
The Zodiac Academy.
Oh, okay. So I read the first one in that series.
Yeah.
And I liked it. And I think those authors, Susan and Caroline, are so fucking talented. Like
No,
they
they
really are
are. No, they
so fucking
really
talented.
are. But they did one
And
thing
not
that
just
made me mad. I was so mad.
uh-huh.
Because that I thought it's like killing off a character that you love. To me, they were killing off a potential relationship, but they weren't. But they were. But they weren't. And
Right.
see,
Yeah,
it was.
when I read the first book, I thought it was RH. And then after
So
I
did
read the
I.
first book, no, I read the first book and I was like, I think they're not going to make this RH. And I went and looked. I went and looked at the other books, like in the reviews and stuff, and people were like, it's not RH. And I was like, I can't do it because I love too many of the the guy characters. I
I
wanted all of them
I
to
actually had to
win.
go back and think about that because I thought that they had made it RH. Like
Yeah, yeah,
because there were like, especially like the wolf Sean, the wolf guy.
yeah. They set it up for like a killer RH, and then
I
it
know,
wasn't RH, which
I know.
is smart on their end. It's a huge series and people love it. But for me, like I was like, I love too many of the dudes, and I know they're not all gonna get chosen, so like I couldn't keep going, even though
Sarah
there it was really good. I was just like, nope, sorry.
Sarah is again correct. It is in the same world. I know who you're talking about. You're talking about the lion, the dragon, and there were and the griffin, was it that they introduced in the original
Yeah.
series
Hmm.
that could see the future or like see was a seer or something. So anyway, yeah, so that was a reverse harem and it was in the same world. And they actually interacted with the characters. They crossed over a lot with the characters and the characters that like the acquaintances of characters. So I love the worlds. Like I want to go into that world and I want to know everything about every person in every situation. Like the Sentinel world, I have opinions on where I thought you should go for a couple of things. Like I want to know more about this, that, or the other.
I want to hear about those opinions. Feel free to
Well,
tell me.
well, no, that's what I'm just saying. Like because
Yeah.
I
But you think it could go somewhere and then it goes somewhere different, which sometimes is awesome because it takes you on an adventure you didn't know you wanted until you were there. And then sometimes it's not awesome because if you don't get like a really big payout in a different way and you think, oh no, they should have done this instead, I would have liked it better. Like if it doesn't hit correctly, then that's harder. And that happens too. And that's always like a rough situation.
yeah, but it's each person to each their own again. By the way,
Exactly.
scuba, reverse harem. A harem is like a dude that's got a bunch of like females, right? That's a harem. Think of a
Yeah.
reverse harem as a chick that's got a bunch of guys. See, it's a reverse harem. That's what that means. And yes, it is a group.
Yeah. And there's actually a little bit of I don't want to say controversy, but there's been some discussion about the term reverse harem and like switching it up to what they call a why choose romance, which is you have a lead character, female typically, and she doesn't choose just one mate. So she can have as many as she wants, basically.
Well, I mean, there are some books that specifically have where it's been destined they're going to have a specific amount and they're filling those
Right.
slots.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was a really bad turn of phrase there.
I think it worked.
I mean, like
So yeah. So I think the
their
overall
dance card isn't
consensus.
full. They've got to fill their dance card, you know?
Yeah, I think the overall consensus is that writers and readers are switching from the term reverse harem and saying more why choose romance is what they'll see more of. So,
Well, I'm going to call it what I call it. It's what I've been calling it. I'm going to be completely sincere about this, and this is something like in other aspects of the world that I have a big issue with, and that is stop fucking with our terminology. Period. Like, stop taking away terminology that just makes sense or means what we know it means, and then be like, well, technically, fuck your technicalities. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, it's like I see both sides of it. And like as an author, it's really like probably not my place to say one way or other how things should be. And for me, it's like I kind of just operate under the like I don't want to hurt anyone. So if people are saying like, "Oh, this term, is shitty and it shits on this group of people." And while I may not completely understand every facet of that reality or the details of that entire situation, for me it's like, okay, well, I don't want to shit on anyone, so I'm just gonna like
yeah.
pivot and try and and there with writing and being like an author and having like public platforms, that's just kind of been my take from the beginning, which is like sometimes I fuck shit up and I try to fix it when I fuck up. And so if people are like, don't do this anymore, and I'm like, cool, I'm on it. I'll just try
Yeah.
to keep like my platform and the whole vibe just like super as accepting and open as I possibly can. But like we all make mistakes. And I do get it in the sense that it's been called reverse harem for forever. For me, I'm not like obsessed with that term, and I feel like I fell into the whole like reverse harem community like super accidental. I think I
You tripped
picked up.
and fell into it.
Yes, like 100% fell on that cock. Like it was 100% like, wait, what am I reading? I think I picked up a book off of KU. I had no idea what it was, and then reading through, suddenly I was like, wait, she ends up with more than one dude? What? This is a thing? And then I loved it, and yeah, the rest is history. But so I feel like it's not even necessarily a term that people know unless you're like in the community and you've like stumbled in accidentally, which is how I think most people find their way into it. They have like there's a gateway book that just opens up this whole world of like, holy shit, she can have what? She can have as many dudes as she wants. I'm here for it.
All the
Um,
beans. Let's go.
right? So for me, I'm like, I don't know that that term like makes or breaks the genre. I don't know that why choose is the best option either, but like I don't have anything like helpful to contribute to that conversation, so I'm just like I'll sit back and wait for smarter people to figure that out and then just let me know.
Well, first
And I'll
off,
be on board.
Sarah, I totally agree with you. What your comment about which ones you like when there's that. Yeah, right there with you, hands down. But here's the fun fact: I think it does make or break, and here's why. Here's why. It's very. If you say, "Dude's got a harem," you know what that means. If you say reverse
Right.
harem and you use common sense, you say, "Oh, female with guys versus guy with females," right?
Right.
It to me it makes sense. So if you say why choose, well then it doesn't in that term doesn't define kind of like I want to read women with a bunch of guys, right? I don't really
Yeah.
care about a guy with a bunch of women. Like I don't
Yeah,
read
that's
that.
not my vibe. Yeah.
Right. So if I see RH, I'm like that's for me, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it helps define it for me. Like and also
Yeah.
don't change up my search
Right.
like,
Don't, I just figured out these keywords. Don't fuck with them, please.
so now I know to have to put in why choose, because if that's a thing, then apparently I got to put that in. I have to put in, what is it, trigger, why choose, reverse harem, dark. Like I have this whole list.
Yeah,
It's like 40
honestly,
terms long.
I think the best way to figure it out, or at least this is kind of what I've done, is like if you follow an author on Instagram, go to like one of their book posts and look at what their hashtags are, and then just use those keywords when you're looking for books.
Well,
To
you
me,
think
that's been like the secret to my to success of
you
trying to
think
figure
that I
out.
would know that because people keep telling me, like, for example, for you, like all the hashtags that you use, I should use them, for example, on this podcast. But do you think I did that? Oh no.
Well, and it can get crazy too, because especially when you're trying to like pimp your shit out or push it out, and you're literally trying to think of every possible crevice or corner of the market that you could try to get your stuff in front of. I don't think that it's always the best marketing like thing to do that for everything, because then I feel like things fall through the cracks, or people can get overwhelmed with shit. But I think you have to do it strategically. So I don't think you would need to in this case. Like, have to put like every
Yeah.
possible hashtag ever.
Well, by
Because
the
then
way, Sarah is my new best friend. Just letting you know. Um, that emoji is actually another way of saying MM. Just saying.
Oh, the sword crossing?
Yes.
Yeah. There's all sorts of like hidden codes. We have like our whole, I feel like readers, like hardcore romance readers, there's like a whole set of codes and emojis and different ways that we talk about these things so that we don't get blocked on Facebook or TikTok or any of these platforms that don't like us to talk about dirty shit. I don't get it.
Well, I don't either because you go and you can find content that's dirty as hell.
Yes. And you should be able to. I mean, it's like I get not being able to talk about these things super publicly on all the platforms. I do get like protecting innocent eyes, so I do get that aspect of it. But, and I like to say, like, a lot of authors wish there was like a better platform for us to talk legitimately, like, about these like dirtier aspects of real life. But then I think a platform like that could get real sketch too. So
Well, that's the thing is
it's
that,
like I don't have an answer. I just have a complaint. It's not super helpful. So
but
yeah.
that's the thing though is, and that's also, again, I keep saying this, but it's the truth. This community is about being able to talk about things, including, and usually it's a difference of opinion. For example, I am okay with this and you're not okay with this, and we agree to disagree, but there's respect there. I hear
Yeah.
you out and what you have to say. Don't
Yeah.
try to convince me that what you're saying is correct and what I'm saying and I'm an idiot, unless you're talking about yourself, and then who am I to
Just
judge?
yeah.
Yeah, but
And I feel like there needs to be more of that. Like we just accept what's right for us as individuals.
yeah,
We do what's right for us as individuals, and then we just accept that what might be right for us as an individual might not be right for somebody else, and there's nothing wrong with that, like whatsoever.
exactly.
At all.
And I think that, if authors were in the mindset to do this, and I think that y'all do this behind the scenes individually already to a point. I honestly think that I'm not saying a specific platform for that because, then they could have the scrubbers go through and like oh, this terminology, oh, I can't talk about that.
Right.
However, having even a monthly, like, what's it called? Not a conference, not in person, but like a Discord's amazing for it. You all get in a voice chat and you're like, you know what, guys, look, or they have threads and forums, all this stuff, and you just post it and say, look,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't think two peens are going to fit there, but have you had a situation where that might work, or do you think that's just too far? Like
Yeah,
for
that's
the
like an
for the
editor.
readers to.
Yeah. I think Discord could be a really good platform for that. I don't know much about Discord in general, but it seems like it could be like a cool place to
It's got to be
have like
locked down, and it's got to have the
yeah,
NSFW. Like my
yeah,
server is completely NSFW, and I have the disclaimer on my lives. It's for 18 and over only, and I don't care that that gets me less on the algorithm because
right.
I don't want to have to worry about that.
Yeah,
But I think that if you lock it down properly and you lock people behind, where you can verify, that they've said that they are this age, I think that within reason, I think even like voice chats and stuff like that, to be able to just gather once every so often and just say, hey, we're having an open talk about some of the stuff, our problems we're running into. Hey, have you guys had this issue with Amazon? Hey, have you guys had this thing with,
right,
whatever else is going on? Or
right.
what do you find works best? Like that collaboration, we're all about that. And I just want to be a little fly on the wall and listen in, but I think that would be awesome. And I don't see that, and a lot of people all feel the same way. Like, some of the subjects matter is so taboo
Right.
to a point where some people consider any of the stuff we're talking about today a bit taboo.
Right.
So to them, it's too far, or it's over the line, or
Right.
it's
Yes.
inappropriate. Sorry, mom. Um,
No, yeah, there's a lot of people out I mean, I get most of like the emails I get or messages that I get complaining is about the language that I use in my books. Because people do not like women who say fuck for some reason. Get a
the
lot of
phrase that I hate the most is "your pretty pink pussy." Like, don't say that. I don't want to hear that. I don't know why that just burns my ass so bad.
yeah.
That specific phrase, and to say it multiple
I get
times, like,
like
no.
a yeah, I get like a solid like chuckle and sometimes a cringe when you'll get in a lot of the so there's a lot of we have like individual reader groups, like I have a reader group for my books, and then you'll have like these bigger reader groups on different like platforms where it's like all RH or all about enemies to lovers or all about like monster romance or whatever. And typically, like once or a couple times a year, you'll get like a solid thread of people who will write down the things that they hate that people say in books. And it's just so interesting to see like what they are, like what people's icks are and things that annoy them that authors say all the time, and the way that we describe like a cock or the way that we describe a girl's pussy or the use of the word cunt. Like it's just so interesting to see like what icks people out. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I totally agree. Like in my head, I would never say it publicly because I don't want to like fuck with anyone's vibe. But like I'll be like, oh yeah, I hate that. And then sometimes I'll read one that like I put in books and I'll be like, no, that's a good one. Don't hate on that. Don't hate on it, please.
Well,
But yeah, it's
my
funny.
one, my one also is, I remember I read a book. I don't know who wrote it, and it could be anybody. I can't remember
Right.
who wrote it, but they consistently referred to the turned on smell as her feminine wiles.
Oh yeah, that's weird. Like let's just call it like what it is. Like what it is. And there's been a lot of speaking of like feminine wiles or like girls being wet, there's been like a lot of debate in a lot of these chats about women who get irritated about like the female main character always being like wet or like dripping down her thighs or like just always being ready, and they'll be like that doesn't happen. And then you'll always get like a group of other readers who are like it happens to me, it does happen, it's a real thing, it exists. Like maybe you're not experiencing that in like your love life, but it is like a legit thing. So it's just always funny to be kind of a fly on the wall of some of these reader conversations and just see how people feel about things. And because there's like not every book is for everybody, and like not every writer is for everybody, and not every story is the story that's gonna like get someone like excited and sucked into the world and all hot and bothered and like all the feelings that the writer hopes the reader feels as they go through a story. But that's also the cool thing about just the book world and the indie community in general, is because you may pick up my stuff and not love it. My writing may not be for you. I may be a little bit too vulgar. The way that I describe something may not be the thing that gets you going, but there's going to be somebody out there who probably does. You
Right.
just got to find them. And the fact that that there's someone to find, that wasn't like that 15 years ago. You kind of just got what you got at Barnes and Noble, and that was that. And now you can just, if you have the right words or you find the right reader group, you can find the thing that just like flips your entertainment life upside down. And it's amazing. It's such a cool aspect. And there's so much hope for like where it's going in the future and different platforms who are going to start doing what Amazon do. And yeah, it's just like a really cool thing.
Well, I personally am obsessed with books. I would love to have a platform or a section because, I obviously have a section for creators, I have a section for artists, and I added authors so that,
Hmm.
my happy author friends have a place to be. Um, but I would love to have a section, not necessarily for people to like, the readers to say, okay, well, I'm writing a short story or something, but to talk about,
Right.
stuff like this that they want to talk about. I don't have as many readers that, talk about the same types of books
Right.
to justify
Right.
it yet. I would love
Like
to
a
at some point. And people were like, oh, well, if you get into like book reviews and stuff, you need to like do a separate channel. Don't put it on your channel. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, because I don't think,
Right.
like, who the hell am I to say anything? But I have opinions just like everybody else.
Yeah, I think with this whole thing, like just starting your own business and stuff like that, you just sort of have to see where it goes. I put my first book out and I had no fucking clue if anyone would read it. I thought I had something good. It was the kind of story that I would want to read, and I hoped maybe a couple other people would pick it up. And it hit like top 10 in the Amazon store and in the world. So like it blew me the fuck away. I didn't see that coming. It validated that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. But like you just never know. Like with you decided to start a podcast and it's growing and you have kick-ass people on here and you have amazing support and you just sort of see where it goes. You have to be in a position to like know who you are at the base, but also be able to pivot in a way that like helps you grow and like become what you're supposed to become. And it's just like a constant thing. And it's super difficult and super awesome all at the same time. And so yeah, you just kind of have to see where it goes. Like if you get like a fan base of people who want like author information and talking to authors and behind the scenes stuff, then you capitalize on that. And if you don't, you don't. Like it just depends, like trial and error type stuff.
Let's see. And yeah, guys, did you know that there was a top author? Like, it's not just, she doesn't just, scribble in a journal every once in a while. She's like, I mean,
I do that too.
well, she's a bestseller. Like, honestly, because that's what that is on top Amazon means you were like, you hit the big time as it comes. And that's not easy to do. That's super, super, super hard because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books coming out constantly. And to hit those top 10 is ridiculously hard. And
yeah, and you think too sometimes like when you get there, like when it happens, and you're like, holy fucking shit, is this like real? And then there's hype around your book and people waiting and pouring into your reader group and your sales are insane. And then you go to write the next one and you hope it happens again. And so, and it may not, or it may. And it's just like, it's a whirlwind. It's super fucking cool and it's super fucking challenging, but that's indie. Like that's indie everything. Really. So, yeah.
Antonius from Russia, he translates everything. So
Oh, awesome.
he says,
I actually just got, I had a Russian publisher just reach out to me, so I might have a few books that are getting translated. We'll see what happens.
he says, I have a question. How the hell do you invent or develop entire novels, 1 to 200 pages, which to me is a short story? Sorry, no offense to anybody. Without knowing initially what can even happen in your head or the process work on it.
Oh, so this is such a great question because this kind of opens up the conversation for types of writers, and there's a lot of different types, but usually it comes down to what the writer community calls pantsers and what they call plotters. And you kind of usually fall in one of two of those categories. So there are writers out there who, well, one, it comes down to imagination, right? Like most of us are writing the books that we want to read. That's really the key. We want to read something, we don't think it's out there in the market, or we think we can do it better, or we have a different take on something and we go for it. So really it comes down to like picturing in your head or writing out like who are your characters, what are they about, what are they going to go through, like what's the big thing that they're up against, like you plot a book, like you just figure out everything from start to finish and then you write it. So those are our plotters in the world. I am not one of those.
I was like, I wouldn't be that either.
I'm what's called a pantser.
Fly by the seat of your pants?
Exactly, which means I sit down at a computer and I just kind of go for it. Now, what I do before, I guess maybe is a little bit of plotting in my head because, like I said before, I like to picture a book like a movie in my head. So for me, I always know exactly how the starting is going to look in my head. I know like the music I hear in the background. I literally see it like a movie. I know how it's going to start and I know how a book's going to end. That's what I know before I sit down to write a book. And so I get down on my computer and I start writing how I picture the beginning of that scene. And then from there, it's just like I make it up as I go. So, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it because it's kind of just like one of those weird things that I feel like some people can do and some people can't, and it kind of is what separates you from the crowd is your ability to imagine that story and then communicate it to a reader so that they can see what's in your head too. and it's like a super cool fucking thing when it happens. Like when readers really get like that vision that you have in your head, when they really get that through a book, it's like super cool. But yeah, I don't know, I just I think about it, just think about it and it happens. Hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's awesome. And I mean, I really appreciate it. I just realized we've been going for about an hour and 40 minutes.
Shit. Sorry.
No, don't say sorry. Are you kidding me? That's the whole point.
I know it's only supposed to be an hour and I'm just like not shutting up. You're like, girl, can you let me go?
No, that's not it. What I wanted to say is that was what I was hoping for, because when you get immersed, the same as when you're reading or doing other things, you get immersed in a conversation.
Right.
And I know that this is your first podcast. You would
Yes.
never know. You would never know that. I'll tell you that. And I can ask anybody in the chat. Nobody would ever know that. You are
thank you.
well spoken. You're articulate. You're interesting. You're fun. You come across clearly. You get all of your thoughts out there. I mean,
Thank you.
it's ridiculous. Like, I was like, that's funny. You were lying. No, I didn't think you were lying, but I was like, whatever. You've never done this. Sure. Okay. But
No.
I mean, honestly, it's been a blast. I do have somewhere to be in 20 minutes because I promised Truth that I'd help him out. But I couldn't believe when I looked, because I hadn't actually looked at the clock. I looked, I was like, holy shit.
Right? I didn't know either. We'll just have to do this again sometime.
No,
I feel
absolutely.
like I just invited myself back. I'm like, listen.
No,
I
I'm down with that. And I am planning on doing I'm planning on doing some open forums, like where it's a little bit more open, where people can pop on, either guests
Yeah.
or people can pop on and talk,
That'd be awesome.
stuff like that. And you're welcome to show up then, or if you have something happening or something you want to rant about, please come back. Please tell me.
Okay.
And
do.
you watch how fast I make it happen, because I'm really quick like that. And so
I
look,
just saw a
there's
question before we go. Sorry. I just saw a question about have you considered making your books audiobooks? I do have audiobooks for all of my books. I do have people asking me if I narrate them. I don't, because I don't have time to do that whole production thing, but I do have them out there. So sorry, just one little marketing dig in there. But I would love to come back, and I had like an awesome time. Everyone was super like cool. I loved all the questions. Like in the sidebar, I was trying to like read them while also talking, which I've now realized is not a talent of mine. So I'm sorry if I didn't answer anyone's thing. So I apologize for that. But yeah, have me back, please. This is fun.
Absolutely. And like they say, they want you back. So obviously, and
Hey.
you guys make sure you drop a comment after the fact, so maybe it'll boost it up. Other people see it, and we can like get everybody to stomp around and get mad, and we can get her back soon. Will there be gift books? No, Antonio, because I'm a broke bitch. Anyway, sorry.
I do giveaways on my Instagram or something. So if you do want like free books or something, just like follow me and look out for a giveaway or something.
Yeah, check her out on Instagram. She's also, I believe, you're on Facebook, and you have like a Facebook group, things like that. She is in the Elsewhere Discord at this point. Whether she gets irritated and leaves it eventually, who knows? But for now, she is in there. If you do want to, drop a question in there, join the Discord, feel free. And most of the guests are
next couple days.
Yeah, most of the guests are in the Discord. If they have deleted the app, they leave their names in there just because to be supportive. So that's why there's like 40 something plus artists, content creators, reactors, all these people are in the Discord with those tags. So, but
Awesome.
yeah. Oh, Instagram's blocked in Russia and Facebook. That's right, Antonio.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah, sorry about that.
I'll see what I can do,
You
Antonio.
know what? I actually just realized I can't mail you books either, because I had a giveaway where I had a couple people in Russia win, and I did try to mail them books and they got sent back. So I actually can't. Even if I was like, hey, send me your email, I'll try and send you something. It won't let me. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody spending the time with us. I had a blast. And like I said, I don't care if you're just like in a bad mood and you want to rant. Let me know. We could probably hop on. It's not a problem.
The next time Amazon pisses me off, I'll be like, listen, guys, let's dish the dirt.
We'll call it Mamazon.
Yeah, like a super like obscure code name. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. I had the best time. I appreciate you even wanting me on here, and I hope everyone has a good day or night or whatever it is, wherever you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have a wonderful time. Remember, join the Discord. Check the description. It's got her information in there. Jess has been posting links like a boss. And I love
Awesome.
y'all. And Jump into Truths, he's going live in like 15 minutes. I'm surprised I haven't heard from him yet. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening, y'all. A lot of stuff coming down the pike. But definitely check her out on Instagram. Check her out on Facebook if you can. And if you don't live in Russia, Antonio, sorry. And, you know, follow with her because she posts her books and everything. If you haven't read them, please feel free to. Dive into the genre if you haven't, even for a minute, you know, and see what you like. Well, on that note, I think we're out of here.